Hello.
I have to admit that is like being in church, isn't it?
It is a bit like Stars on Sunday or whatever it is. Yeah. How are
Perfect,
you?
perfect. I'm fantastic. Welcome everybody. Hopefully you are ready for some action tonight. We have got it coming at you. So we're live. We are live across about 600 different platforms tonight. We have added pretty much everything that is possible, and some that are probably not possible, but we'll find out about those later. I'd like to welcome, I'm Anthony Baker. I am here with the esteemed...
Oh, sorry. I thought we were going to pause for effect.
Yeah, pause for effect.
My name is John Coddle. I run a company called Mission 23. We're a business consultancy, very different to what you do, Ant. But basically, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about other stuff, what's going on in the world, right?
We are. Good evening, Nilesh, and thank you, guys. We have the comments that come up on the side here. We have an opportunity so I can pop those on our screen. So Nilesh Patel says, good evening, Anthony. Spelt my name wrong. Got no H, but that's fine. No H, A-N-T-O-N-Y, like the Greek god, or...
Well, you're without an H and I'm with an H, right? You know, that's
no H, the Greek way of saying it. So, right, guys, it is Tuesday night. Every other Tuesday night, John and myself, who we're friends. We do business together. We've worked together. We do some consultancy stuff together. We are very much two different types of people. We offer different opinions, usually for the same color of the egg, and that is why we decided to come and do this with you guys and talk to us about it. We're going to try and keep this to half an hour today, but as you can tell, John waffles on quite a bit. So we've got to keep it out. So I'm Anthony Baker. I work for Lisses Financial. We are a regulated or regulatory advice business offering client lifecycle management, financial crime compliance. John is a growth specialist, not the growth that you get growing out the side of your arm or head or anything like that, but the growth in your business, personal growth, and all that sort of growth, and all the growths that come with it.
Financial growth, not carbuncles. Thank you.
Marvelous. So we are here today to talk to you today, and we have an idea or a bit of a plan of what we're moving forward with CCAST. That will be on our website and all the other platforms that we have. But obviously, John and I have day jobs, and we are extremely busy during those day jobs, but we're not too busy for you. So what are we going to talk about tonight, John? What is on the radar?
Well, so there was some stuff recently. The European Union's just signed a few trade deals, notably one with China. You've got, and we're not going to talk about Capitol Hill and what's going on there, but you've got...
No, we have to. We cannot. Not with me on the call. Not talk about someone running around with horns on his head.
But yeah, but Biden has said he's going to rejoin WTO. You've got, Whitehall champing at the bit, signing deals with anyone who'll talk to them. So it's a really interesting time because world trade is kind of changing, and certainly if you're a Brit, there's opportunities left, right, and centre. Yeah, there are challenges, and there's more paperwork for this country and less for that. But world trade, and in your industry, there are less barriers to trade than most. It's a really interesting time to do stuff and to look slightly further afield. I think it's an interesting time. 2021. Should be a really good year for people who want to kind of branch out or people who have, multinational sort of exposure. It's good.
Let's wind this back a little bit. Let's bring some people into this, or bring some people to the party that look at this and go, Jesus Christ, you guys are going to talk about world trade between EU and China and how that affects, and let's put some funk on this. And Shamia, how you doing? Nice to speak to you. Nilesh, no worries, mate. People do it all the time in my name, so don't stress about that. So what are we looking for as far as, here we go, there we go. Bosh, look at that. Love this. Awesome. So let's look back at world trade. When we talk about world trade, we're talking about the economics or what happens between companies in the UK and companies overseas, correct? How they trade together and how the government can benefit that with world trade agreements and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but it affects all of us, and it's not just the fact that toys from China are cheaper, right? It's not just that; it affects all of us. In everything we do, and if over the last few years we've seen a kind of turn inwards, and there's a lot to be said for that, supporting buy local and local is national and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to be said for that, but if you do too much of it, it slows down growth, and it gets in the way of the world, and it reduces your access to the stuff you want. So there's always a balance, right? If you have a completely open dialogue in terms of trade with every country in the world, it's a bit too much. So it's just finally, after all the uncertainty of Brexit, after the Trump era, things are kind of a bit more. I'm trying not to get into politics, but
well, the politics is a part of this, John. Don't hold back, mate. We understand that you're on the Green Party and you love that sort of stuff, so that's fine. But and I actually was a councillor. I was a Conservative councillor here in Worthing. So please, if anyone's watching this and you're one of my constituents, I apologise. But I think what's interesting about this, and let's put some context to this for the people that we get their news from Sarah on Facebook every day. Let's talk about what happened in the US, because what the EU did with us going into the EU and how they control the sort of the trade agreements with that agreement. They're protectionist, the same as Trump was trying to protect the US. So really, other than orange being orange and some really bad hair and a fit wife, there's little difference, really. Is there really?
It's interesting. You're right about being protectionist. If you had a vacancy, you had to offer it to someone inside the EU first rather than outside. We're trying to control the borders, but you had free movement of trade, and absolutely, it was a form of protectionism. But it's kind of on a bigger stage, and a little tiny country trying to compete against big countries doesn't work. But where do you draw the line? At what point do you stop? It was easier to move around in Europe than it was inside the US in terms of employment, in certain industries. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. But what I am saying is the fact that we are globally now more willing to do deals, and it's happening and it's opening up, has to be a positive thing for most people, not necessarily for everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the issue, isn't it? When you're, COVID, and we'll bring this into it very quickly, is not great for a lot of people, but it's affecting a lot of other people, and there'll be ramifications as it goes forward. And trying to balance that has got to be a difficult thing to do. But if we look at Trump and what Trump did, MAGA, I mean, his whole, 2016, his whole process was make America great again. We're cutting ties with everybody else. We're going to manufacture in the US and we're going to use the US. We're going to sell our stuff externally, but we're not going to bring anything internal. That very much made America, yes, it pissed everybody off, and yes, it made everybody that wasn't part of that campaign not enjoy Trump. But it really, I'm not saying I don't want to say,
the only thing that the thing that he said, he had this phrase of drain the swamp. He never did any of that, did he? He just filled the swamp with his lizards rather than their lizards.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Trump's out, Biden's in, right? That's the US is obviously a big, large part of what we do. We'll get to the China EU deal in a second, because that's fantastic to talk about. But the US. So Biden's in. They came off of a lot of benefit play or situations or allegiances, if you like, with the rest of the world, and they changed the way that they did business. That'll come back quite quickly, right? I think I saw.
Look, don't get me wrong. Trump, and I'm going to struggle to say this. He wasn't all bad.
Hang on a sec. Hang on. Let me just soundbite that. So what was that? What was that, John?
He wasn't all bad.
Just for the thousands of people that are watching this.
So he wasn't all bad. He, the stuff he did with North Korea, it was his Kushner, his son-in-law, that brokered the deal with Qatar. But the problem is history only judges you on all the bad stuff, right? Nobody remembers all the good stuff. But the fact that they want the USA wants to rejoin the greenhouse gas whatever emission thing, is good. I just think it's a time of change, and whenever there is change, there is opportunity, and whenever there is change on this scale, there is massive opportunity. I think that's a good thing for anyone who's running a business or wants to sort of expand what it is they do.
So I watch House of Cards religiously. I've watched it. I've watched almost to the end of it. Obviously, we understand from watching that sort of stuff how real it is, and how things like going back and getting involved in emissions and how that affects on everybody in the world, not just over economics, but on how the health of the world, and how that's got to have in some way an effect on how people are sanctioned and how they're not sanctioned, and how we trade with different countries in the world. And ultimately, if we look at what the US has done and how they're changing, how they're making that change, that's got to be better for the UK. And now that's happened, now that we've left the EU, are we now in a better position to be able to negotiate with the US, or what do you see happening there?
Well, it really depends who's in charge. There was that fantastic quote from Obama when he said, look, if you leave the EU, we're not going to do a deal with you, get to the back of the queue. And the minute he said get to the back of the queue, you suddenly realized he didn't write the speech. It was written by someone in Britain, because they don't use the word queue in America, as you well know. So, you've got Biden, who sort of says, well, if there's an Irish border, I'm going to do a deal with the EU because, I'm Irish by history, not British.
200 years ago, there's someone who came over here.
But then you've got Trump, who would love to be British, but we don't want him. It really just depends who's in charge. But if you're honest, it's a business deal. And guess what? There's a small country with a reasonable amount of influence in certain sectors, financial services and so on and so forth. And then there's a whole collection of other countries which are very, very heavy in manufacturing. And who do you do a deal with? Well, you do the deal with the one that works best for you. Actually, you do a deal with both. It's business. Trade is business, and countries doing trade deals are just business people doing trade deals on a massive scale. So
the EU controlled what we did in the UK, and a large part of what they do was standards. Making sure that we kept things up to standard. And then the second that we leave the EU, they go and jump into bed with China. Talk to me.
The cool thing about
other than I like,
the cool thing about that was van der Leyen, or whatever the lady's name is, the official press release talked about, they'd done a deal with China, but they talked about common values. I've never been to China.
Communist values, or was it common values?
Common values. I've never been to China, and I do get my news from not just the BBC and ITV, and I don't read tabloids, but you
get it from Susan from Facebook, don't you?
I kind of have an inkling that China doesn't quite have the same values as the European Union.
Well, what's that? What do they call them? The people they call it. They've got a name. Can't remember it, but it's like a derogatory term for the people that they chuck into vans and they go and do all their work from on the manufacturing facilities and so on and so forth. It'll come to me, but so we leave the EU. We go through everything that we've been through to leave the EU. We put into this place. The second we jump out, they jump into bed with China. Why? How is that going to
politics? It's politics, right? You've got internally, you've got Europeans going, oh, well, to hell with them, they can leave. And then you want some good news, but you also want to poke the Brits in the eye as they're leaving out the door, right? So it's politics. The announcement didn't just happen the first week of January by accident, right? But we've done a deal with China. We've done a deal with Turkey. The other interesting thing is, I was reading the article today, you can't take food into the EU, which kind of makes sense, but all these lorry drivers are now having their ham sandwiches confiscated.
Got it. So we've got some kind of comment here from Lee Smart. Thanks, mate, for getting involved. And what I'll add at this moment in time is that John and I are, we live in different places. We come from different backgrounds. We've got different ideas of how these things work. This Seedcast is designed as a platform for us just to have a chat. It is a conversation. I am not an economist. As the lawyer Cameron, a friend of mine who works with us, he said to me, Anthony, I would love to sit on a show and listen to you talking about the global economy and what's happening in that space. I can tell you now, I am not a global economist. John is more widely known understanding of this and how this works, but still, neither of us are from that space. So when we talk about these things, it's from our knowledge and understanding of what we see and what we come out. So we do appreciate, people taking some things with a pinch of salt. But let's just go through this from Lee. So thanks, Lee. Surely can only be a good thing that we can trade without compromise with anyone now that wants to do a deal without restrictions or volume controls based on other countries' concerns for its own economy. Business is business, and the US and other countries will come to the table. you know, what are your thoughts on that comment? And thanks, Lee, for posting that. We do appreciate that.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, he talks about without limits. I mean, there will be limits, but you know, they'll just be in the margins. But yeah, absolutely. You know, and we have to get people around the table. Dialogue is progress. But it's interesting. I've got a number of clients. You know, one is inside the EU, wants to relaunch into the UK. How do they do that? I've got another client in a regulated industry. How do they operate inside the EU? There's a lot of stuff that's gone on and going on. And that's the first phase. The next phase is now where, now what, now what? And to Lee's point, you know, coming to the table and having an open dialogue and being able to trade freely, absolutely is a good thing. Yeah.
So how, you know, and again, thanks, Lee, that's fantastic. But how dependent on the current government is what happens in these trade deals? I mean, you know, if we change government in the UK, how would you see that affecting the overall deals that we have internationally? Because surely the party lines are going to be different.
Well, so the trade deals aren't negotiated by politicians. You know, there might be a politician gets on the train to go to Brussels, but in reality, it's a whole load of civil servants, and they tend not to change, but they tend to take their strategy from ministers. I mean, things will change. You know, what's important, you know, to one color of politicians is different to another. But don't forget, it is also political with a small p in terms of appeasing the masses, right? You had the Boris saying, you know, we're going to look after the fisheries. Well, fisheries counts for less than 0.1% of our GDP. You know, it's a tiny thing, but it was a very powerful message, you know. And yet the City of London, you know, and all the financial services is the engine room of certainly of London. That didn't get anything like as good a deal. So there was a lot of appeasing the masses.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, well, no, it's more appeasing the masses than actually hard-nosed, common-sense statistical approach to it. But that's the nature of politics, right? You know, if you do the really sensible stuff, you might not get elected next time.
So you said about GDP, gross domestic product. If someone says you know, if I said to my kids we're in a recession, what do you think? And you know, kids nowadays, or people nowadays, a lot of people nowadays just think that it is our economy's broken, no one's got any money, and the world's coming to an end. The actual reality and the understanding of it, you know, how we get into recession and how we get out of recession is actually really not widely known, which comes to a surprise for me.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who voted in the last election have never been in a recession. Don't forget, it was Gordon Brown who said that he put an end to boom and bust. Yeah, that didn't work, did it? But,
I like Gordon Brown.
But you should read his school maths report. His maths teacher said he'd never amount to anything.
Yeah. He didn't. Yeah.
So I mean, but that's quite an interesting thing. You know, if you voted at the last election and you've never experienced a recession, first of all, you have to understand what is a recession. You know, and in a level of detail that you understand. But secondly, how do you get out of a recession, right? If you're getting less money and everything's getting more expensive, you know, the thing is constantly tilted against you. How do you turn that around? There's a lot of people in companies in positions of I wouldn't say power and authority, but in quite important positions have never been in this situation either. So businesses are going to have to rethink. But yeah, you know, if you turn around to all the young voters and said, right, you know, this is how we get out of recession, we'll do this, they'll just go, no, you're not doing that, because they don't understand it. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you know, Lee, to go back onto your point, it has to be a good thing. But you know, when you're talking about a small handful of people that are in control of how it affects the national economy, and let's look at it how it affects the national and then global economy. I mean, you know, what was it, 2008 when the banking crisis happened and the market changed? You know, before that, the governments didn't have anything or any you know, way of controlling or manipulating or understanding what is going on in the financial services sector in London. Yep. After that, now they've got their fingers in the pie and they're tasting it whenever they can. And you know, there are things that are changing, and those do have ramifications and effects overall that affects everybody. So I'm just looking back actually, so some notes that I put forward for us before. But we talk about when we talk about standards changing, and we talk about what's happening in the EU and how this affects and where we can go and get without compromise, we can go and trade with anyone else. Who controls how we look at this on a human rights perspective? Who is who is covering that? Who is looking after that from us? Is it us?
Well, the United Nations.
The United Nations. So then with what happens in China and how China, they didn't all wake up on the 4th of January and go, you know what, we've changed the way that we're looking and control. They couldn't do it.
No, well, so it's like this, right? You run a football team and you've got a load of kids playing football, and then someone turns up and he offers to buy everyone the kit and this, that, and the other, as long as his son can play centre forward. They still have centre forwards in football. Don't know. What do you do, right? Well, that's what countries like China do. They go, no, that's how it's going to be. If you don't like it, we'll just turn off the tap.
Yeah.
We live in a world where we hope people care about each other, where we don't necessarily want children working and doing dangerous stuff and all those things. But the reality is that some countries are just doing it anyway. And how do the philosophy of you've got to work with them rather than fight against them is the only one that will eventually get you there.
So we, the US, the borders are coming down a little bit. The EU changes, but it strikes me that rather than barriers coming down around the world, they're being erected. We kind of, yes, in the UK now we're free to do what we want and trade with who I want, but the barriers around the world haven't changed. They're getting further or harder or taller, and like the wall around the US, it's something that is changing. That there is not more opportunity. There's less opportunity, and the barriers are it is going to affect the way that we trade with these countries.
Yeah, it is, but isn't that the ebb and flow of how the world works? 100 years things are very different, but in 20 years other things can be very different. It's just how it is. And don't forget, China wasn't that powerful that long ago. India wasn't that powerful that long ago. Brazil was more powerful, arguably, than it is now. Things ebb and flow. The interesting thing is, the gorilla in the room has always been the USA. Not sure it's the gorilla in the room anymore, right?
Yeah. So Lee, I know Lee. Lee's a local lad to us. He's a good lad. I play football with him a bit, and he's got businesses here in locally, and this has got to be a horrendous time for local people to have businesses and so on and so forth. And I do sort of follow and keep up with him, and hats off to the lad for trying to keep it going. But here's another question for him. I think now that we're out of the EU umbrella, our other opportunities will open up. To China may not be such a good prospect, and opportunities, I'm sure they'll come, and I'm sure a lot of people want to do for it, but a lot of people want to trade, and he says here, Turkey is a great partner with a huge manufacturing base.
We signed a trade deal with Turkey. I think it came into being on the 4th of January or something, so that was clearly in the works. But we used to have the Commonwealth Free Trade Agreement. We used to trade with, all these countries around the world. We had to leave that when we joined the EU. Now, I don't know, and I don't believe that still exists anymore. But
for a decade, free trade. The global thought of free trade was it was a good deal, right? And that changed.
Yeah, but does the Commonwealth Trade Body still exist? I don't know. So we had to turn our back on that. So it's one of those things, right? There is no such thing as perfect. You just pick and choose, right? It's just like politics.
Do you think that we can get involved
in a conservative politician?
Yeah. I can tell you now, being a politician, grassroots politician, is not all it's cracked up to be. But anyway, so I think I definitely don't think that the government's going to be calling you and myself up anytime soon to go and help fix any world trade deals. The WTO, I'm pretty sure that they're not going to be asking us for any advice anytime soon. But it's not just entertaining. I think it's interesting, and I think the world that I live in, I talk to bankers all day long, every day. And bankers. There's two types of bankers. There's the bankers with B at the beginning, and the bankers with W at the beginning of their words. And that is very apparent within 5 seconds of speaking to them. And I think because we're lucky in the UK because of our financial departments sectors and how strong it is globally.
This is your clients and your customers you're talking about. You know that, right?
No, they all know that I love them. So it's and they would not have got this far into this podcast either. So, and I think what's interesting is that what people forget is the financial sector in our business and our economy, and the pound and the sterling is so powerful. He says there that Turkey want the sterling. It's so powerful internationally that we have the luck of being able to fall back onto that and that power in our little empire of the UK.
Well, there was a move. Well, there was a hint that years ago that the euro was going to be the world's first reserve currency. Currently it's the US dollar and has been for years and years and years after the gold standard fell apart. I mean, but the euro has never kind of been able to stand up to some of the pressure it's been put under, right? So it's not going to be the world's first reserve currency. I think
that's going to be Bitcoin.
Well, we'll eventually get to
crypto assets is where it's at. I'm telling you now.
Well, the Chinese central bank now produces its own, or is about to produce its own cryptocurrency. You've got the Americans kind of looked at it and walked away, mainly because Zuckerberg wanted to have a role in it somewhere, apparently.
Yeah.
But it's coming, right? I don't know enough about any of that. I've got a friend who works for a trading company that specializes in virtual currencies. But
we do quite a bit in the crypto asset space. We've got people that work at our business, MLROs, and we offer advice and consultancy across the crypto asset space, and not just with crypto wallets, but with all the way across it. And it's very, very interesting. I've actually got a job right now that I'm working on, which is a chief compliance officer in the US with a company which they call themselves a payment platform for the digital space. Okay. When you're gaming and you're playing whatever games online, you can gems or whatever they call it, or you're playing Call of Duty and you can earn credits from it. That credit will be a unified Bitcoin currency. Or whatever it's called, that is smaller than Bitcoin, which allows it to break down to smaller. But and then you can actually get that into Bitcoin and pay for it. But it's an unbelievably difficult financial sector to regulate for a start, and to secure, because every day these new wallet companies come up and they're getting hacked and the people are losing their money, and it's a difficult space for the regulator to fully get behind. But we've put somebody recently on an MLRO for a cryptocurrency firm, and we've had MLROs in normal banking space. The document for the FCA, for the regulator to put them on, is 17 pages for banking, 36 pages or something, 32 pages if you're in a crypto firm. And I've probably got those slightly wrong, but it is a lot more if you're in the crypto space.
But it's coming. I've got a Canadian friend of mine, Jan. He sold his car. He had a car in the UK, and he now lives in the US. But he was selling his car in the UK, and somebody wanted to buy it.
Thanks for the backstory.
Somebody wanted to buy it using Bitcoin. And to buy a car, right? It's so it's coming, and it's going to become more and more common. Interesting.
Yeah, it is, and you know what? I think that's we talked to. I think I've exhausted everything I know about world trade. Hopefully you found this somewhat entertaining. Lee, I appreciate you coming on in your comments. Thanks for that. Feedback is always welcome. We do have a PO box in the Bahamas if you'd like to send your feedback to there. If it's negative and positive, please email me or John.
Not just Lee. There's other people I can see contributed as well.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone who sent comments in.
Is Bitcoin a safe option to trade with? I can tell you this: if you want a crypto firm that is legit and up to speed, give me a shout, Lee. I'm happy to point you in the right direction because we work with the largest providers in the global Bitcoin economy, so we can definitely help you with that. And everybody that's comments and makes this happen for us, we really do appreciate it. We do love doing this, don't we? And I know sometimes, John, we do talk. We don't just rock up and go, "Oh, what we can talk about today." We have put 6 or 7 minutes of thought into it, and we can't do this without our public watching. So we really do appreciate you guys watching. I really do enjoy it. We will have live the list, and what I was looking for earlier on was a list of subjects that we are going to broach,
discuss, chat, talk about.
That's actually, yeah.
So if you lost your list already?
No, well, I emailed it to you, but it's
so to everyone watching, this is how organised we are. We spot WhatsApp messages saying what should we talk about, and then we have a list which ain't like on the piece of paper and then loses.
And you know what though, I think us keeping it with topics, it gives a little bit of an education for you guys as well, but it also gives you an opportunity to message us and go, "You were wrong. This is what you need to talk about." No, we do like that, so please do.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I've exhausted everything I know about world trade and probably made some of it up as we went along as well, right? But that's the point. If it's informative, if it's helpful, if it challenges your thinking, if you disagree, that's okay. That's the point of conversation, right?
It is, and the thing about this as well is there's 2 of us on this right now. I'm not sure how many people we can have on this, John, but we can have
guests.
We can have guests, and we can put, there's lots of things that we can do to add them on there. So we would welcome people to come and chat to this and talk to us about this. If anyone's got a subject they would like us to talk about, then we would be happy to do this. But we figured that 30 minutes is a good time because, like I said, I'm having to pull John back and say, "John, send him WhatsApp messages, calm down, stop speaking, stop getting too excited." So we stop. So we wish everybody a fantastic evening. Thank you for everybody. Everyone's going on there now. LinkedIn user, we really appreciate it. Very informative. Thank you. But we really do. LinkedIn user, very informative. Thank you. So we really do appreciate it, guys. Feedback is great. Again, this is across 600 of our platforms. We look forward to seeing you soon. We will have a website up for this, which will just give a list where you can come and watch our old episodes. But this is also
that here for me to get the website done. Thank you.
Yeah, John. I've got a reminder in here that it'll be done over the weekend. That's great. I'm not sure if it's the weekend just gone or 2022, but we'll find out about that. So have a wonderful evening. From here on the South Coast and from Mr. Fuggles in London, we wish you a good evening. Thank you.